And hello, this is going to be episode 3 of Coaches on the Couch. It's actually Coaches this week. Everybody is back from their plague and or incident.
That's
So,
what you think. I'm still sick.
you say that. I'm not 100% sure, Aurace. Precision had
Puffy
a
face
brush
over
with
here, dude.
death.
Yeah,
Like,
I heard.
Precision had a brush with death.
He's alive.
good. No worries.
Alright, so basically last week I covered a bunch of the other topics for the episode. It was fun to cast by myself for a bit. Big things I covered last week was the hero type and path you're going to go on, basics of game sense, aim and versus muscle memory. Simu's jumped in, he covered all these topics with me at the very end. Objectives, differences between carrying and winning. And then the fifth topic I covered that Simus didn't was what type of players there are in the game. Shot caller supports tanks. We also answered 2 questions at the end of the episode, so by all means, I got a few questions from you guys today. I've posted them. We'll answer them at the end of the episode. By all means, keep posting questions. We're going to do like we normally do. These two are familiar faces, so I'll let them introduce themselves however wacky, fun way they want to.
What?
Are you going to introduce yourself? Like,
Oh, yeah. I guess. Well, I guess since last week I wasn't here. I'm Aurace, head coach of Liquid. I'm back. I was dead last week. I'm still dying again this week, but at least I'm here. So
well, I
we'll
appreciate
have a
you
good
being here.
podcast.
I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
All right. And I'm LG Evil Precision. Also survived a brush with death. That was because of a nut allergy. We're not going to go into that. Let's just say I'm puffy faced and hyped up on Benadryl and corticosteroids. So, yeah, this should be really fun.
So, I am Kurjun. I am. I should introduce myself as LFT Kurjun. That's where I'm gonna do from now on. But anyway, we're gonna pick up on new topics this week. Basic stuff that we're gonna keep covering and advancing. So the first topic this week, since we've introduced everybody, we're gonna have 2 people possibly jump in later as they come in. I'll introduce them. But first topic for this week is going to be when you're playing the game. We've covered basics of hero types now. We've covered your setup, covered the basic little things, and now we're going to actually start getting into the little bits of basics of the game. So there's different game modes in Overwatch. There is Assault, Hybrid, Control, 2CP, which should probably be removed from the game because it's fun to practice 100% of the time. Kappa no Kappa. Other than that, like we're gonna just ask the guys, like as a coach, when you look at these maps, what's the biggest thing people should understand, like about each game mode, and things that you can do basic wise to understand it.
I mean, like, there's two. I feel like obviously the game modes they are very similar, like 2CP and King of the Hill, which I believe is Assault. No, Assault isn't that.
Capture point is Koth.
Capture Point, right? Those two are very similar. Whereas like Hybrid, obviously just Escort, they're obviously similar. They just have the Hybrid just has a little bit more of the King, like just attack the first point and then payload. But the biggest thing out of each one of them is always just objective. Um, Making sure that you're always keeping the objective in mind on what you guys are trying to do, because the how you play around that objective is going to dictate how the other team is going to play. Because if say you're pushing, there has to be someone there. That there's a flank, you can do different things with that depending on where the objective is. If you're defending or attacking, depending on what it is. So always just keeping that in mind is a big thing.
Yeah, I'm going to lead in with this. So, for hybrid and, initial point of hybrid, 2CP and control point cost, whatever you want to call it. Your main objective in this is to basically capture a singular point on the map within a given amount of time and to hold that objective initially for another given point of time. But so your objective for that is to basically take over these points and to hold them for as long as possible. Hybrid goes into that separately when the payload map starts. and 2CP is assault, where you're going to capture a point, and then try to capture a second point, which is completely terrible right now, in my honest opinion. And then payload maps, your objective is typically to push the payload to a final resting point at the end of the map before hitting overtime. Yeah, I mean, that's basically the objective in both of those. From a defensive standpoint, you're going to want to hold off the attacking team, especially for payloads. You want to stop them from pushing the payload as far as possible. Hybrid, you want to stop them theoretically from capturing that first objective point before they can get the payload up and running. 2CP, you're most likely not going to get a first point hold, but it would be effective and more beneficial for your team. And control point, it's honestly going to go either way most of the map, but those would be your objectives for each type of map.
Yeah, the big thing that with this topic is how you play a capture point. You can draw parallels to how you play Koth. Like I play Koth this way in solo queue. I play Koth this way with my team. I play Koth this way. You can actually translate some of that stuff to the hybrid modes because fundamentally all hybrid mode, the first point is a short Koth round. It is literally how fast can I get on the point and cap it. 2CP is the exact same way. Like you have to take into account spawn distances, which is probably the only exception with 2CP, but everything else is fundamentally the same with capture points. And then payloads, it's about managing progression with taking up space and territory. And as defense, it's about area denial with other things like that. So just draw parallels between the two. So if you're playing a purely assault mode and you play it a certain way, you can run your hybrid second part of the hybrid the exact same way. Transitioning from the two modes is probably the biggest difficulty there. But when you transition smoothly and you can make the differentiation, desertion, yeah, I don't know what word I want to use there. The difference between the two game modes, and you can apply it, and you understand that you have to shift gears to go from capture point to assault on a hybrid map, or vice versa, and understanding that you generally will have a better time with the maps and the objectives. Is there anything else anybody wants to add?
Not particularly. I think you kind of hit it on the nose. It's just like each mode you can kind of see the parallels, like you said, the similarities between the two. Obviously, hybrid just a combination of both two, like 2CP slash King of the Hill and payload. And then for 2CP and Koth, they're very similar too, just based on capping the point. But one is just like you already have the point versus having to attack the point again. It's like saying 2CP, just flipping it over. But the play styles are relatively similar. What's the biggest difference is, now that we're talking about like map objective, is the map itself.
Yeah,
So that's literally the biggest difference.
Yeah, this is where you need to start taking into account. Like, even if you're like a silver player, you need to start taking into account. Like, I'm on King's Row, and I've had most success on King's Row with X because I play it on X. That might transition to Dorado. That might transition to Numbani or Hollywood. And just being able to draw those parallels will help you immensely. And that's probably one of the best things I could tell you early on as a coach without getting too specific into map-specific strategies and map-specific compositions.
Right.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. Sorry, Aurace, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to add just like the basic of like payload and payload and escort and hybrid is that the setup is pretty similar. You have a kind of a closed space for the first like section. Second section is always a high ground, something with like streets, and then the last one is kind of enclosed in small, lots of nook and crannies you can go into. Like every map follows that similar style, so just understanding which section you're good at also helps a lot, or like what you need to switch to for that section is going to help immensely.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the biggest differences in those game modes is first point 2CPs and Koth maps are a little more brawly, in my opinion, a little more deathmatch style. Whereas we kind of do set stuff in terms of payload maps and hybrid maps. It would be like taking a second point of a assault map or a 2CP for a hybrid map and trying to take it that way, and then transitioning that into a more death volley style for payload.
Yeah, the probably biggest thing to discern here, and it's something I just thought about actually, which is funny. When you are playing a capture point map, you are primarily playing for total team kills. You are playing to kill all 6 members of the opposing team, whereas on assault modes, you're just trying to kill 1 or 2 people where they have to back off or they're going to lose the fight. And so it's a numbers game versus a total team kill game. Is probably the biggest parallel I could draw between the two. So when there's the box, you want to kill everybody. When it's just the payload, you want to kill 1 or 2 so that you can gain space and always have a numbers advantage and they're afraid to go in on you. And I think that pretty much rounds out that topic unless either of you want to chime in again. And we is going to head towards our next topic, which is fundamentally in this game and in any game where there's a progression style of objective or anything where you have to area deny or you have to take up space, there's something called push pull. And as a coach, analyst, player, everything, you have to understand a little bit of it. You don't have to understand all of it depending on what you're doing. But I was wondering if you guys could give your basic opinions on push pull in games. So I'll give you an example. Like on a capture point, the capture point is they're capping it, but you get a recontest. And then another one would be like on a payload, you had somebody get picked early, and then they're going to come back in, and then you get a pick. So something like that. But
I mean, okay, so there's 2 basics to this. So if you're going in for a recontest onto a cost map per se, typically you're going to go in and force a dive onto, in my opinion, one of their high priority targets to give yourself some kind of sway. So if you take out a support early on in a cost map, it gives you a massive advantage in terms of they can't sustain that fight for very long. They're down a healer. It gets to a point where you can sway the fight in one favor or the other, depending on how the fight goes. So I know this happened to us last tournament. In particular, we were playing a Koth map. Rob got taken out slightly early. It sways the fight. We don't have that massive healing advantage. So it pushes the fight in one way or the other. The same thing would be for payload in terms of you lose a player. You have to pull back and wait for that regroup before you can push back into them. I know I'm using the terms here, it's really stupid, but you push back into them and try to sway the fight back in your favor. And that's the constant push and pull in these games is you're forcing advantages one way or the other to where one team has to back off or take the losing fight one way or the other. Like they have to have a choice.
yeah, one of the things that you can say in some situations, like if you pick a support early, so it's a 6v6, you guys go in, you pick the support early. There's a 5v6 going on now. The 5 team has a decision to make. They can pull, which is disengage, pull the opposing team out, look for a pick on the way out, and try and deny as much economy as they can, giving up their hit points or stalling on point, etc. And then there's the other option they have, which is to push, which is to take the bad fight and rely on mechanical DM to win the fight. So you have both instances, it's a decision, and this is where shot calling we covered in episode 1/2. Your shot caller makes the decision. Is this a fight we have a chance to win? Are we going to get out cleanly? Are we going to get something here? And this is where push pull comes important because you could be playing a solo queue game and you don't know anybody and you don't have a shot caller, but you might have an ultimate coming up or you might have something coming up. And basically, you're going to have a chance to push back in versus pulling back out, and you need to communicate it. And that's one of the things that you can do in solo queue or in your team that you just formed and you all are starting to understand the game and try and play at a competitive / professional level, is the push and pull. And I genuinely think Precision hit a really good situation there with one of them. Another situation, and you'll see this, I covered it last week, is Widow is built specifically for pick compositions. If Widow gets a pick early, she can 100% engage. Her entire team can engage the 6v5 because they now have that pick. They've won the numbers game. They can start taking up all the space that the other team is pulling out of. So, do you have anything you want to add, Aurace?
I mean, not really. You guys covered it pretty much on the nose of that, and like you said, the biggest thing with a lot of high tier teams, or even just like in solo queue or even lower like tier 2, understanding just the basics of when and what situations that you can push or pull, or like you have to retreat or you can be aggressive and go in. That's just another way of putting push pull, just to clarify, is something that, again, it's a shot caller, but it's also on the players themselves. Like sometimes you have to like communicating like what you have up, like you said, will dictate whether or not you can go in or not, or how confident you are being able to get this, or what position they're in. Like there's a lot of things that go into that, but the basics of it is like if you understand the just very common situations of when to either get out or to go in, even if you're down or if you're up, those are some things that have to be looked at quite frequently. And it's sometimes some teams actually lose sight of that, even in tier 1 sometimes, where they don't really understand when it is a good time to actually get out or go in. And that's something that is really important for all tiers of play.
Actually, that's a really good, like, we can hit something like right now because I just thought about it. In both of your opinions, and I'll ask each of you in a second, and we'll start with Ares. This is actually a very, very common thing for a lot of people. They don't understand. When you are backing out of a choke or you are going through a choke, who do you think has the advantage? The team that is pushing through the choke or the team that is pulling out of the choke? I know this is situational based on where positioning is, but theoretically, from like our perspective as overseers or from the game in general, chokes is one of the fundamentals that people need to understand in this game because of its impact. And what's your opinion, Ares, on who has the advantage there going through a choke?
Going through a choke, I mean, like you said, it's situational again, but and the biggest thing I would sit on is it depends on the comp. Triple tank isn't actually that bad going through a choke, most of the time. Sometimes it's actually better for them if they're in a choke and you actually dive them, because a lot of this stuff is AoE massive damage, around them, instead of kind of poking around like with a very common triple DPS dive, where it's like if you get into those small places, it's a lot harder to maneuver because you're actually limiting like the advantage that you do have, which is again mobility. But in general, I would say that it is disadvantageous most of the time, because then for a fact that they have to be coming through one area. You have to come out of that choke in this one area. Therefore, you can engage there. And it puts them in a spot, and there's no time to set up where everyone coming out of the choke is trying to set up, trying to move out of that choke into a bigger open area to take a position. Whereas if you deny that, it's pretty easy to win that fight, I feel. So in general, I feel it's a disadvantageous position.
Yeah, I definitely feel like further down the road in this series, we will get into an in-depth with one of these situations, and we'll go through situations like this more often. This generally will have more impact on diamond players and up, gold players lower. This isn't me firing shots, I'm just being honest. You all don't group as much and you don't target focus. Those are big, big things that you see shift in those tiers. Trust me, I get placed in silver every season, so I know what's like down there. Been there, done that. And then I get all the way up to GM, and I hear GM's target focus, and I hear them, coordinating strats and everything. So there's a huge difference in communication there, but we'll go more in depth later. What do you think, Precision, about that situation where a team is going in versus a team is pulling out?
Honestly, I'm going to side with Aurace here. I mean, it's disadvantageous to push through a choke. While 3 tank comps are a little bit beefier, you can soak more damage that way. I still think it's advantageous. But most of the time, you aren't really forced to push through as an entire team through a choke. There are other ways around, above, or there are other options.
Yeah,
Definitely. especially in this game with all the hero selections and everything else. But strictly speaking, if you're pushing through a choke, you're more likely at a disadvantage. But again, this is where dive comps come into play, um, where you don't exactly have to go through the choke to take the fight.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just feel it's disadvantageous. And one other thing I was going to add to the push-pull as well is it's something that we can't really predict. I don't think we're ever going to be able to predict it, honestly. But hero plays, what I term them,
That's what I term them to. I think every coach does. When
I,
Taimu
I
suddenly pops 6 faces by himself.
yeah. So I think that's one of those things that really kind of sways as well in terms of push and pull is those kind of hero plays because they're not easily predicted. You never
Yep.
know when it's going to happen. Um, but there's always an occasion for them to pop off that can technically sway a fight.
Yep. And that's why when you look at top tier play, the people who are quote unquote the stars, you generally hear about it. Like let's do a sellout real quick to the people we know that make hero plays. Grim Reality got his reputation for McCree clutch plays. Taimu Surefour, Defran, Baby Bay, hit scans, covered them. Projectile heroes, agilities. Y'all guys can chime in at any point in time.
Yeah, that's the one I was gonna do. Shatter's another one.
Shatter, Shadow
AZK,
Burn,
just on Shadow Burn on my team. Just like
AZK.
listing it off.
Yeah, definitely going to
Jake,
give it to Jake. Yeah.
Jake has done it a
Yep.
lot.
Jake has done it. Train has done it quite a bit on Tracer, especially last tournament. I don't
Yeah.
know how much of that you caught, but his Tracer play was absolutely superb.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thinking back,
And it's not
Mickey,
just limited.
Mickey on Envious.
Yeah, I was just
on
getting
his
ready to
Diva
transition. It's
is
not just
actually insane.
DPS players. Don't think just
Um,
because you're not a DPS player you can't make hero plays. Like
Midnight.
Mickey,
Midnight
Midnight,
does
Vol,
really well.
Train.
Let me
Man of
see who
Snow
else.
used to make clutch plays all the time. There would be random moments where Man of Snow would hit really, really clutch gravitons or Diva bombs and just win sway fights. Reinhardt's. Nox is another one.
Super.
Super. I was just about to
Super.
get to Super and Nami that are backing out and
no,
they hit 6-man shatters.
You
Oh, yeah.
honestly, back when that was like kind of like the prime where Ryan was just the it, like
Nano
you
boost,
see those
speed boost,
Ryans?
Ryan. Let's go.
Yep. And that was back when Nano actually still gave a speed boost too, which was super helpful because then you literally just run face mouse one into them.
Yeah.
And what are they gonna do? Because they get 2 shot.
Yeah. From the support role, Shake Rolf. Rolf is one of the only supports I know who is like considered a DPS player in my opinion. I don't consider him a support. Don't let him play Fragger Zenyatta. He's gotten triple kills. He got a quad on us in a tournament as Ana. Rolf makes hero plays. Like it's not limited to your role. Shake does it. Rip Shake. Moment of silence for complexity.
Speaking on Rolf, actually, I know this is like super triggering for a lot of DPS players, but I've noticed it consistently from him scrimming with us, against us. But he makes hero plays not in the traditional way that you would think of him, like just popping off, but him being able to sleep dart a nano boosted anything is absolutely insane.
Consistency of denial.
His ability to just sleep dart a Genji flying at him face first is absolutely insane and one of the most triggering things I have ever seen in my life.
It's actually it's a really good thing you bring up. Like you don't have to make a hero play just by killing 6 people. You can make a hero play by completely removing their play. So like a team goes, we'll go an old meta, Nano Reaper. Team goes Beyblade. They go Nano Reaper, Speed Boost, Beat, or something like that. In that combination order, Shatter, something, some 4 ult combo or ability combo. And literally you hit a sleep dart, or you hit a CC, or you mitigate it. You have made an inept hero play that is mitigation or denial, which is also another great thing that sways fights. And it's all in these microtransactions that you can make these plays, and you have to have the faith to do it, you have to have the ability to do it, and your team has to follow up on it. So communication is key, understanding what you're going to do, and then as soon as it goes off, communicating it. I mean, the dart could be midair, but you see it's going to hit. As soon as it does, your team needs to be able to react. Shatter, Nami, we talked about him earlier. Nami was playing on one map, I forget who against, and he was kiting back, and he basically baited their Reinhardt into shield break. Their Rein had to drop shield, and then Nami speed boost engaged in his shatter and basically nulled the push by pulling so well and knowing his engage window. Another really, really good one that is really, really famous is divas that are really, really good and can predict a graviton. Like, you could tell your team to clump, I know the graviton's coming, and then you tunnel on the Zarya, and you
Yep.
can mitigate the graviton.
It's actually funny that you mentioned that too, because there used to be a high influx of Genjis reflecting gravs.
Hmm
I haven't actually seen it that often anymore. I feel like a lot of the time they don't go for that anymore, but that's also another example of
Yep.
of mitigating that, because like if the Genji is quick enough or has the presence of mind that and just reading the Zarya, because the Zarya,
Yeah.
when you look at them or you look at any player based on their positioning, it's a very telltale sign of what they want to do, like very quickly. But just having that presence of mind to go for the reflect, like dash and reflect, I've seen back then, like in season 1, season 2, like there were constant like reflects, because that was one of the things Zaryas were scared of more than the diva.
Yeah.
They're like, wait, like, can you bait out Genji reflect for me? They didn't care about the diva, they cared about the Genji.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, who was the famous person on Lijiang Tower Control Center? They dash through the Zarya, deflect the graviton, and the whole hog as the combo goes off, and literally get a 6-man kill by themselves. I don't remember if it was Shadowburn or who it was. It's a famous Genji play. I just know I remember.
If it was early on, Shadowburn's probably the best culprit.
It's a really famous video for like the transition before Beyblade meta back to what meta would that be? The McCree shield
meta.
flash meta.
Yeah.
So it's somewhere around there. But yeah, it's one of those hyphy plays that like literally swings, and that's why you hear people talk about the mechanical skill cap and reaction time and all this stuff. It just basically makes it so that that's more consistent. But I mean, if you're a silver and you put enough effort into it, you're going to be able to do it. Like, these are things that will sway fights and will be able to make it so that you can push pull. And we hope that you guys understand that now. Like, these plays are the cues that coaches talk about that immediately trigger the go button. These are the things that are mental switches. They are the things that this person missed this cooldown, we can go. This person missed this, they're not going to have it. I know that this person doesn't have this, so I can take advantage of it in some way. That's just understanding. Do you have anything you want to add? Anyone? Proceed.
I think we're good. We can move on to the next one. I think we actually kind of touched on it too a little.
Yeah, it's actually a really, really good transition. We're getting good at this. So we're going to go into our next topic, and this is one that I've been asked for since episode 1, and I told everybody we'd come to it. And we'll basically hit on part of topic 5 in this, but topic 5 will be its own thing because that leads to a whole bunch of discussion, and coaches with free time love to talk about it. But basic compositions in this game. You have 6 people per team. Of those 6 people, you have 6 people who can pick up to 5. I think it's 5 because there's only 5 supports. So you can pick up to 5 of any role in the game. And I say that because you can't pick 6 supports without going outside the class. But you can pick 6 tanks. You can pick 6 DPS. You can pick 6 whatever. And these are your compositions. So we're going to cover the basic compositions and types that we have in the game. We'll go ahead and you pick one, Aurace. You get to pick a composition and explain it.
Composition, I mean, let's just go with the basic 2-2-2. It's been around for forever. It's been here since the start of the game. It's just the one that people think and feel is the most balanced for a long time. Is it the most balanced? It can be. Again, it's just more of the strengths, but we can get back into that later, of the team, the strengths of the team, but we can get back to that later. I mean, 2-2-2 is your basic, like you have 2 tanks. So one is your main tank, so your Rein or your Winston. You have an off tank, which is anywhere from Road, Zarya, Diva. You can actually run the other Winston. I know MV does that a lot, which is actually a very strong thing to have, especially into the triple DPS dive right now. That's another comp that someone could touch on. You have 2 DPS, and that DPS can be almost anything, just because with with those two first tanks, and depending on which ones you kind of mix and match with, and what your team's comfortable with, you can mix and match to whatever you're strongest with. Selfless, for example, they do 2-2-2. It's a very, very common for them, and they do soldier and tracer just because that's who their players are good on. And if you look at any other team, you can tell who's good on what. It could be Genji tracer, it could be whatever it needs to be. The supports, again, Lucio is still a very key support. Very rarely do you see them get off of it. There are times in maps that we can go into a later date that you can switch into like a comp without a Lucio, but it's not as great. I know Rogue was experimenting with it for a while. It didn't work out as well as they'd hope, but it does work out pretty well just because just who they are as a team. And also I know other teams have been dabbling with it too. And that is just it's pretty much like the jack of all trades comp and like a master of none, because you can get everything together and they're really they're strong, and there's no glaring weaknesses, but you can tell based on what they pick on what their weaknesses are. Sorry. But it's just like the solid standard, like this is just what we run. Cancer comp is one of those examples of 2-2-2 that's super strong, but there are weaknesses to that comp as well. Cancer comp being the Winston Diva, Pharah Mercy, Tracer Lucio that is the Cancer comp. But I would say the 2-2-2 is probably the most balanced with no glaring weaknesses, but no crazy overall strength either.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in real quick for everybody so that you understand. This is something I think I covered a little bit, but I haven't gone in depth with. Basically, in Overwatch, there are 4 compositional directions you can take any team. You can take the 6 heroes and you can make 4 basic things. The first is a shield break comp, which is the brawly type. I want to grind you down slowly. It is sustained DPS. It's called shield break because generally it's Rhine v Rhine. Whoever breaks the shield first gets the pick or whatever. But generally that's the grindy damage dealing comp. Another comp that you can develop your team around is dive, which is everybody has vast mobility and you're looking to get to a target very, very fast and delete it. That's the fundamentals of dive comp. Another composition you can do, which is I've touched on last week, is Widow, Hanzo. They are the key. Even Roadhog is in this. You can have a pick composition where you are literally sitting there playing safe, biding your time, looking to remove 1 or 2 threats, and then you go in. Those are your triggers to engage. So that's those compositions. And then there's the fourth one is really funny because it's situational, but it's the tech comps is what I call them. You'll see that in pro play that they're built specifically for the map. They're built specifically for the stage. But it's anything from double builder, bastion to, one of the funny ones I'll cover because I'm the culprit for it was in Koth back when I was with Sodipop, we experimented with 3-2-1, which is effectively 3 tanks, 2 DPS, and then a Lucio. And these are the funny tech comps where you are playing to either your team, the stage, or something else. But they have an objective based purely on the circumstances that are set in front of them. These aren't just we pulled it out because we felt like it. There was planning and structure to it that made that 4th composition type its own thing. But they differ enough from the first 3 that you can develop something from it. Precision, do you want to take one of the other comps? I figure
I'm
you're going to want
pretty
the
sure you
one.
can guess which one I'm going to take in. So yeah, I'm going to go over what we're best known for, which are tank compositions. We're known for our quad tank and our triple tank, but I'm going to go over triple tank. Triple tank can be run in a few varying ways. Mainly, you're going to see a Rhine, a Zarya, and a Roadhog with some form of consistent damage, be it a Tracer, Soldier, McCree. But the DPS can vary depending on how their team plays. You'll see us switch it off with a Pharah, occasionally a Genji. There's a few different ways you can do it, and you can also swap out the tanks. Diva's pretty useful right now, I'd say, in a certain amount of situations in place of Zarya. She can mitigate Roadhog hooks and things like that. And then you're gonna go with the typical supports. We like to run either a Lucio Ana or a some form of Zenyatta. Mercy will come into play if you see us running the Pharah Mercy combo into what they're playing, but not super often. So triple tank is one of those that is called shield break and a sustain composition. Your main goal is to focus down their Reinhardt shield and sustain through the fight with all the damage soaking you have from your tanks. Your Ana is going to mitigate all that damage pretty successfully, I would say. She's probably the best in class to do it right now, especially with the added Lucio buffs. But so that's the gist of a triple tank composition. A quad tank composition gets a little more toxic in terms of there's more damage to soak up, but not as much damage to output. That's more of a, I would say, pick and get in quickly, the way we used it, which would be, what do we do? We did Rhine, Diva, Zarya, Hog with an Ana Lucio. And what we used in that composition was to basically use the Rogue Hog to get an early pick, or break their shield down very, very fast with the Diva and the Roadhog spamming at him. It causes a scattered fight typically because Rhine Shield's broken, we're going to run away. But you can force a pick off of that and force another team very quickly. They don't have enough damage to kill 4 tanks, and then their team's dead. So that's the basic gist of the tank compositions.
Alright, so that leaves me with my fun bag of tricks, because both of these gentlemen here can hate me all they want. I am the proprietor of the philosophy that my flex tank and my main tank should be DPSs as well as what they do. So I will cover the funny comps. If you guys followed Renegades and Hammers, Renegades LG Evil, we developed the strat, and then Liquid jumped on the train at some point along with 1 or 2 other orgs. The dive comp slash 042. These comps are basically as fast paced as you can play the game. This requires high mechanical skill, high coordination, but it is fundamentally a pick slash dive comp. The end goal is to get onto the point, which you dive, that or get a pick as you're going in. As soon as that objective is met, you also are developing a team fight as it fight and sustains for your pick heroes to be able to get value. So you would say for us, for example, we actually scrimmed Hammers, and that's where this composition came from. I forget if you were Hammers or LG Evil at the time, but basically Hanamura, if everybody remembers the grand old 0-4-2 games between us, them, and the 2 teams that were caught off guard by it was Tracer, Genji, Pharah, Mercy, Lucio, and a Widow. And fundamentally, the composition played out. My 5 heroes are going to dive to the point. They get to the point as fast as possible, and we want to brawl on the point. While I use my movement and my mobility to take advantage and gain the space and potentially gain a pick on going in, my Widow is setting up a sight line to enable the pick. So the dive is enabling the pick, and then if the pick goes off, you are again enabling your dive by getting an odd fight. So what Hammers and us both did, slash LG Evil, was we ran this composition, and because of our great Widow players, our awesome Pharah players, and our tanks being able to play DPS, and our flex tanks being able to play DPS, we could run compositions that didn't require tanks, that moved at lightning speed, that immediately neutralized the objective. Granted, these don't work as well on payload maps. They're actually really, really bad. But on capture points, they were really, really successful for a very short while. And then teams slowly started realizing what they do. So this is one of those shock type compositions that's going to win you a point. But getting away with it consistently isn't going to help. But it's definitely one of those tech slash comps that's built for the map, that is a hybrid of dive and pick, and just plays off each other's strengths.
Yeah, I remember that being casted in Carbon because we had Super on Tracer because he screamed he wanted to play Tracer.
Super got
casters.
Super got 2 kills, and I remember because Juvenile was bragging about it.
Yeah.
Super got 2 kills, and then he got the pulse bomb to cap the second point because you all capped in like 2:36 or something.
Yeah, it
And
was a
then
really quick cap.
Juvenile, the following game versus the other team in our group, he got the 3 or 5K. I forget what it was on the first point, and then got the second point, and he's like, "I'm so much better than Super." And it was like,
Super was like super hype, no pun intended, but uh yeah, he was pretty hyped because he finally got to play some Tracer in an actual, competitive match against other pro team and went off on that second point of 2CP Anubis. I specifically remember that. Just
yeah.
because the casters were like, well, he can play more than Ryan, and I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, he's got a
Most
pretty deep hero pool.
most professionals can. It's actually a very common misconception that tanks are not good DPS players. They aren't good supports. Another composition that we'll come into real quick, and if he wants to yell at me later for it, is there is a comp called the Gods comp. Do you two know what the Gods comp is?
Uh, Hit me.
Aurace, do you have any idea?
No, I probably have seen it and have heard of it, but I don't.
All right, so I have to
No.
give credit to where credit is due. Back when Sombra first came out, and there was a whole meta shift, everybody was trying to figure out what's going on. Renegades was trialing Gods. We were still under the Kingdom banner. I got to work with Gods. He's a brilliant guy. He's great at the game. He has a great mind. He has a composition that is fundamentally this. It is a Sombra, a Genji, and 4 supports. So you run Ana, Mercy, or it might be Lucio, Symmetra, and Zenyatta, and then a Sombra and a Genji. And fundamentally, because of the way the composition is set up, you play to a map. You are building for the Sombra ult, which is going to set up a total team kill. So this is, I guess, a glorified super pick comp. Your Zen is going to keep spamming. Your Symmetra is going to keep spamming. You're going to have tons and tons and tons of spam. And basically the composition works like so. Because of all of the spam you can generate, you're going to generate a shield gen. Sombra's going to get into the backline. She's going to hack somebody. She might get a pick. Genji's going to spam. He's building his blade. And the whole culmination of this comp is that you are either going to EMP Nano Blade, or you are going to get to a point where you have picked and done enough splash damage that even though you have 200 health heroes, you can go in. So this comp technically is a 0-2-4, but the comp actually has a goal, it has a direction, and it's combo play. And Gods came up with it, and I forget who we were scrimming against, but we used to do it on Hollywood. We would set somebody up in the back alley, he would go around to Sombra, and partially it was because of his play, but it's definitely something that if you have great comprehension and understanding, you can pull off a Sombra. Sombra's not a quote-unquote bad hero. And then everybody else understanding their job, and this composition basically was set up a total team kill. How do I effectively capture this point? I just kill everyone. How do I kill everyone? I just take everything away from them. Basically, you go from there into that composition, and it's one of those odd techie comps again. But that's the Gods comp, and it's like you never would look at that from the outside and be like, wow.
Huh. So that's what it is. Okay.
It's really weird, man, but it worked. It was so weird.
Yeah, I think so.
I can see that a lot of like the quote unquote tech comps they work too because the element of surprise. Because a lot of times people, especially now where the meta hasn't the meta hasn't really shifted to the point where something is like innately broken. You can technically run every comp and it'll be okay. It just depends on obviously map, phase, etc., game type, obviously. But what the tech comps come into is that element of surprise and just something that people usually don't see. So that element of surprise is something new because like basically running the comps that we know, like the 222, triple tank, quad tank, triple DPS, dive, 222, whatever. It's how you play those. And that's where like that Gods comp would work. It's because if everyone's on the same page of how that comp is supposed to be running, then it can work because now it's like, well, what do you do? Like no one really knows. Like, do you go after this person? Do you get this person? Do you just wait? Do you hide behind a shield? Do you just run straight at them? Do you go for picks? Do you like people? A lot of people sometimes in the moment, especially during a game or like a match, sometimes it doesn't cross their minds. It's like, how do you deal with that certain comp? Because they've never seen it, so now I have to go through a whole analysis of that comp right then and there.
Yeah, in a 4-minute window that,
Exactly.
you could
So
lose within 30 seconds of thinking.
right, and you have to, yeah, exactly, and you have to take about that long to figure out what the hell you want to do against whatever they're running. Which is by that time, it's like more than enough for them to get a pick and to start snowballing you with ults or combos or whatever, what have you.
Yeah, definitely this 100% applies to solo queue, by the way. Just so everybody understands. If you see a solo queue game and you see double sniper, triple sniper, the most random comp, never sell it off as they're throwing or this is going to be easy. Like, I will be honest, I played competitive today with 2 friends of mine, and they were playing double, or not double, they were playing, their composition was Mercy, Genji, Hanzo, Aurace, Zarya, 76, or not 76, Junkrat. It was Junkrat. So that composition, looking at it for me as a player, I was like, okay, Pharah is amazing here. I will go into this and I will just rain down upon them because there is no answer here for my Pharah, and I have a Mercy, so I will just live forever and blow everything up. And this Hanzo turned out to be the nuttiest Hanzo in history, and he had a hit scan bow. And he shut me down more effective than I've seen soldiers shut me down. And definitely because of the way that composition was built, he had the support he needed with the Mercy Pocket. He had an Orisa that would tank for him. He had damage boosts so that he could one-shot me. I mean, it was a solo queue comp, but there was definitely thought in it. It definitely was not just what do you feel like playing? And they all just magically picked that. There was some forethought to it or some general grasp to it. And I admit, I just got stomped. So,
Right, I want to bring up one that we didn't particularly cover. And that's going to be what we call the rogue dive. Pretty sure everyone knows what that is at this point. Not gonna lie, if you don't, you've probably been sitting under a rock or not watching competitive play or like recently. But it's gonna be your triple DPS dive with a Winston. They did some variation of supports. I know they ran it in occasionally in
they
place of
flexed to the
Diana.
map. Like I did
Yeah,
the analysis for it. Like I was doing that comp, but I didn't have it refined as rogue comp. Like I
yeah.
had a Pharah in play and I played to my team, which is what you should do. But fundamentally, on paper, after I did the math and everything, the rogue comp is just nuts. And they do Winston or Diva and then the DPS, and you can keep going.
Yeah. So the 3 DPS in this situation, more specifically for Rogue and what they ran, was a Genji, a Tracer, a Soldier, Winston, Ana Lucio, typically. Um, and basically what they would try to do is dive onto your team, have enough sustained flank damage to pick apart your supports. They would apply pressure to your supports, draw your DPS heroes back to kind of protect your supports, and in that situation, your Winston's already jumped. He can't jump. Your Winston's out to dry. He's dead. He's immediately dead. Which leaves your team open to getting picked apart. So, in my opinion, that's one of the more common ones we're seeing nowadays, especially from like last tournament. We ran it a little bit. I know a few other teams ran it. There are variations with what we call a Korean dive now, where they implement Diva. I know Aurace touched on that. But it's fairly common nowadays with all the meta changes. I know I'm leaving in a little bit number 5. Sorry. I mean, it's pretty common nowadays to see triple DPS, to see 3 tank, 222, the Korean dive stuff. There's a lot of variation in compositions, and it all works around what your team is best at and what you feel most comfortable on.
Yeah, definitely in solo queue, for example, if you have somebody who can play X hero and you have somebody who can play Y hero, and you think you have the we can run rogue comp, well, just keep using that one because you just covered it. You have a soldier player, you have a tracer player, you have a Winston, you have two supports, but you don't have the Genji. But you have somebody who can play something that's like a diva or a Winston, or you could just ad lib the comp and play to what your team can play. Like you can't play rogue comp, okay? I have this, this, and this on my team. That makes for a good 0-3-2 or a 1-3-2. Or I have three Reinhardt mains on my team. Let's run 4-2. Like understanding what everybody's hero pool is in competitive, quick play, when you guys are just forming teams and you aren't developing your hero pools as far as you would like, definitely understanding playing to your strengths will help you a ton, especially in solo queue. Just because he's a Hanzo main doesn't mean that pick is useless. You can play the TTK comp, which is with Zarya and it's a shield break, or you can play a pick comp, which is Hog, Widow, Hanzo, Ana in there if you really want to overkill the snipers. I mean, it's just understanding what the players' pools are and what to play, and then you can refine it. I think that pretty much sums up a lot of the compositions at the moment. I think we touched base on basically everything. You covered 222, you covered 4/3-1-2, and I covered 0-4-2, and then we covered Rogue Dive. So that's pretty much most of the compositions. So, segueing from what I just said, as a coach, how do you tell somebody where they fit into these comps? Like, based on their hero pool, what can they make assumptions about what comps they can play into? Like, I, for example, am currently practicing my main tanks, so I'm practicing Reinhardt, Winston, Diva. What comps can I fit into, and how can you guys help a player, slash, how can a player understand where they fit in?
Well, the biggest well, for me, if you're doing that, it's not just what you can do; it's also what other people can play around it as well. Because like it's all just synergizing with what that one person can play. So if you only can run a Rhine, you can run. You technically can run, you know, a 2-2-2 like dive-ish style, and just have the Rhine just kind of be there as like a safe spot, safe haven for your players to come back to. It also does really well into triple tank or just the regular 2-2-2 comps as well, if they can't play anything else. But the bigger issue being is that what else is getting played around? Like what else what complements a Ryan? Like what is Ryan good at? He's good at controlling space. He's good at mitigating damage. He's good at getting like the initial kind of burst damage through chokes with the fire strike, things like that, and obviously his ult. Like it's very good setup for a lot of different ults and good plays and just pick and just like team wipes in general. So now what can complement him with that one? You know, Hog is gonna really good complement. Anything that can stand behind the shield like a McCree or a soldier can do really well. Zen Zen can do really well with it. Ana is definitely a lot better with it, I think. Lucio to get him around because he is relatively immobile. So he can go, past the shields and slam, or get in a position to, charge, or just to get him into an advantageous spot for the team to set up. Things like that. So it's like thinking of like what that one hero is good at and what his job is in its alone in a general sense, and then what complements it. That's how you kind of build around that one player, or just like if someone can only play one or two different things.
Bum, bum,
Yeah, I mean,
bum.
sorry.
You're good.
So, I mean, going off of that hero pool would be fairly advantageous for most comps that you would want to run. I can see the Diva working on with like the Korean dive, the 2-2-2 dive stuff, the Winston working with the dive really well, the rogue dive, Ryan with the more traditional 2-2-2s, and the triple tank, kind of shield break comps, shield trading comps. I mean that hero pool just goes into just about anything you could want. I think the more deviation you have, the better, and I'm luckily one of those guys that has a team that has like a really, really deep hero pool. It's just like a chess match, picking pieces up, putting them down. But if you have a restricted hero pool, say you're only good at certain things such as projectiles, we don't see a ton of Pharah players that are exceptionally great. I mean, you've got Mangachu, Seagull, Surefour. I'll give Jake his due credit. Hydration is definitely one of those guys. You don't see a lot of it, so we have to form comps around that kind of play. It's not as prevalent as it once was. I know Zarya works well with a Pharah. You typically would like a pocket Mercy with the Pharah, just keep her alive.
Just watch a
Um,
support shoot his brains out because he has to play Mercy. Yeah, I get it.
yeah. But it's situational and it comes down to hero pool. Um, I think that's where all the problems typically lie in this game. Are the one tricks that people don't know how to play around. I mean, Symmetra is good at area of denial. She's going to have a car wash set up on a choke and be able to farm ult super quickly. But people flame the Symmetra mains because they don't know how to play around it. If they can group up and play that area of denial style with her, she's super effective. It's the same thing with a Hanzo. If you're playing a Hanzo, you pick up a Zarya, you play around it. You play that pick style comp. And I think that's one of the problems that's ongoing right now within the competitive scene, from what I've seen.
I definitely agree. Like fundamentally, way back when, back in yonder time when I was still a player, uh, one of the big things that originally happened, and I'll give this player his credit. He started a revolution. Seagull, way back in the day, and then I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong if either of you know, Seagull was the first one to do it, and Surefour was the second. But we had the Bastion Revolution. And the Bastion Revolution was I can play the highest DPS hero because people don't know how to kill me. And then people started to slowly learn how to kill him, and it was like, well, if you put a Reinhardt in front of me, I don't have to worry about that. Oh, if you have a Mercy pocket me, I don't have to worry about that. And this is all way back before the Bastion changes, before he could heal while moving, and all this other stuff. And before Nano Boost, back when Reaper was still meta. And you would play Protect the President. And Protect the President was one of those compositions that was developed, in my opinion, to fit the Bastion player. The guy who was, this is highest DPS in game, I will learn mechanically to be a god, therefore I will carry my team. And that's one of those comps that developed because of it. And we're seeing right now a stagnation because people aren't putting that much effort into developing these comps. Like, I play versus GMs and top 500s sometimes, and I'll run into Stevo. Stevo is an amazing Symmetra player, but I swear to God, he only plays Symmetra. His hero page lies. He only plays Symmetra. But if you play around him, Stevo will legit carry you. If you throw him away, you're basically admitting you're just going to try and play a 5v6 the entire game. Like, you cannot discard that player because of their hero choices. You can either enable them or you can discard them. And discarding them, you're just hurting yourself even more. So the Hanzo mains, the Junkrat players, I forget who it was who told me about it, but basically Seagull and IDDQD have been playing a bunch of Junkrat.
Oh yeah, I told you that earlier.
So we're seeing a lot more Junkrats on competitive. It's the same thing. Like, I understand it's not optimal, and there are going to be times where I would like you to switch. But I should give you my due diligence and try and make it work before I just immediately throw it and discard it and give up. Like, immediately admitting defeat is 100% worse than trying to make it work and then being reasonable. And we talked about it, communication, because you might be able to convince that dude, okay, they tried to make my pick work. They really, really did. We got lucky, but we're still bogged down. I should make a swap. I want them to win. And even if he's not going to play that hero optimally, it's as good as his Junkrat, or as good as his Bastion, or as good as Hanzo. He's trying to help you. And then that's where communication comes in. Don't ever just be a dick. Where you fit into the comp depends on how badly you want to win. Like right now, I'm trying to be a main tank. I have a lot of free time on my hands. I'm practicing Reinhardt, Winston, D.Va. Just said it. Sometimes in competitive, I get a Reinhardt main, and I get a Winston main, and it's like, well, I can sort of play support too, and I could sort of play DPS, so they want those two roles. I'm not left holding the bag, I just have to insta-lock D.Va. I mean, I still can play D.Va with those two, and those are quote-unquote best heroes, but I can also try and make it work on something else that's suboptimal. And if it doesn't work, I can just be like, okay, I tried, I can't do this, can I please have? Can you do this? Because I can't do it. I'm shit in the bed. I need to do this. And it's just communication and being that person, and it'll generally help your competitive experience. Like, fitting into the comp isn't based on how you're gonna roll face or, you know, how you're gonna pad your stats or how you're gonna make that Hanzo not play Hanzo ever again. It's about the ultimate goal is about winning and just understanding to win in the comp and where you fit into the win. I don't know if I can sum it up any better than that.
Yeah, I would say that's about right. Yeah, for at least in competitive queue for sure.
I'm gonna get a little cricket sound effect that I can plug into these awkward little silences that we have sometimes. It's gonna be great. So I said that earlier, topic 5, it's like the playground for coaches and analysts and some pro players. Like this is literally the melting ground of competitive gaming, and it's hilarious. Do either of you know the history of meta?
I think I did a post on Reddit about it earlier and touched on the major ones.
Okay, so I'll let you take it away then. What is meta for everybody who doesn't understand what the word is? It's history, and then going
Okay.
into, you could transition us straight into what it is in Overwatch.
I'm trying to think of the correct terminology for it because it's most effective something. I'm
Most
blanking on it.
effective team attack?
No, I don't think that's it. But
Something like that.
you get the gist. But so meta has changed quite rapidly. Basically in the blink of an eye, or snap of Blizzard's finger when they want to throw a patch at us. But it's an ever-changing thing. So, like Aurace said, the beginning was basically a 2-2-2. Everyone agreed. You know, this is the most consistent form of DPS, tanking, and healing. And then it kind of shifted. So I'm going to try and pull this up while I'm looking.
So meta came from the terminology which is meta gaming. From what I remember, it just means what is something that utilizes all the factors of the game into the strongest possible form that game can bring you. In terms of it changes from game to game, from anywhere from team comp, which is from like League of Legends, Overwatch is one of them, to builds, which is StarCraft 2, StarCraft 1, Brood War, things like that. Just depending on patch notes, what's strong, what's good, what's not, or what factions are good. Going into, Call of Duty, CS is like, okay, this is the map. This is what we need to control, or Halo even. This is where we need to control. These are the weapons that spawn. This is just what's good. This is what we have to go. It's just like the strongest form and the most consistent form of high level results, I guess, produced from just what's available in the game.
Dude, it's most effective tactic available.
There we go.
Okay, so I was close, kinda.
Yep. And
I was struggling. I was struggling, yeah. And then I was like, the T is tactic. What's A? And then I put it together. So here we go.
All right. So I've got this pulled up now. So basically, the history of meta in Overwatch to a general summary. Number 1 was everyone's favorite time. No hero limit.
So Tracer, Lucio.
2 Tracer.
5
Lucio,
Diva Lucio.
2 Winston.
5 Diva Lucio.
The general consensus of this was a 2 Winston, 2 Tracer, 2 Lucio. Ample heals and speed boost. You could trade those off evenly. 2 Tracers to output massive amounts of damage, and 2 Winstons to dive the Tracers and the Lucios. There were several variations of that, but that was the general gist of it.
Cloud9, okay. The gods of it.
Yep. After that, we So after that, we translated to the 2-2-2 meta, which is mostly a Rein Zarya, McCree Pharah, and a Lucio Mercy in that stage. Those were the main heroes in that situation. That was when McCree was a tank slayer. Flashbang right click. Just pocket sand right click. That's all you would get out of that. He could take down a Ryan and literally like one burst.
Yeah, it was
insane.
It was, hold up. Oh, what was the fucking combo? It was flash, right click, roll right click, and the effective damage before nerf was 80 per bullet times 12. It was like 900 damage. Just some retarded
it was
like
absolutely
that.
insane.
While it being super accurate.
Yeah.
And then nobody really knew how to deal with the fire effectively then, except for the McCree. He had no drop off range then either, but his right click was more effective. So most people didn't really care about left clicking then, uh, give or take, you know. Uh, After that came the Ana meta, what I deem the Nano Blade and the Beyblade meta. Um, was the Ana Genji combo, where she would throw in a Genji. Genji had an 8-second ult and could just zoom around and mess everyone up. They kind of nerfed him down a little bit, and that's when Reaper took over. Uh, and then you'd have the Beyblade just zooming around, messing everything up like a hurricane, coming through and demolishing everything in its path. Generalized after that was the 3-tank meta. There was lots of counterplay with Mei and Zen during that time.
Mazen and a little bit of Farah.
Yeah. And then after that was quad tank, because let's not, well, we can beef it up,
Grenade.
right?
Let's just
Yeah.
say Grenade ruined that entire meta.
Anna's pretty strong. Like, let's make her a little bit stronger and just throw in an extra tank.
What do you
this seems
mean
like a
her
really great
effective
idea.
healing per minute is the equivalent to 4 tanks' health?
Exactly. And then after that, Anna got a little bit of a nerf. I say a little bit because she still can effectively hold a triple tank pretty well. And we transitioned to the dive meta transition. Words are hard.
I'm sorry.
We transitioned to the dive meta.
I apologize.
So I think that's the general history of meta in Overwatch thus far.
Yeah, the only quote unquote 2 footnotes I would add is between no hero limit and the 2-2-2 meta, there was a short time where people just weren't able to put 1 and 1 together. They didn't know what 2-2-2 to run. And for a short period of time before the McCree Farah or the McCree Genji meta was the TTK kill, which was the Rein, Zarya, Hanzo, Widow. Basically, you played for Dragon Graviton. And then in between the 2-2-2 and the 3-1, there was that awkward moment where we sort of saw the 1-3-2, but it was so awkward because you could see what people were thinking, but there wasn't the nerfs and buffs hadn't happened enough to get to modern day dive. The thought was there for dive because I experimented with it too, but generally most teams didn't have the players that could play all the heroes, and then the thought process hadn't been developed yet. So that was a short little cliff note, and those are the 2 major swings that he didn't list. So that's the history of meta. So we can continue with the coach's drooling awesomeness of so we've explained what it is. We've explained the basic history of it. So now let's explain to the people how to basically dissect what meta the opposing team is running. Either.
Dissecting the team run, they're just key players that you're kind of looking for, right? It's usually it's their main tank is one of them. You can kind of tell what they're going to be running if they have a Rhino or a Winston, because those are 2 of the only primary main tanks available right now. Good job, Blizzard, trying to make Aurace a main tank, but just what she does is not good enough. Even with the recent quote-unquote changes, I wouldn't even call them buffs. Shield cooldown, sure, but the damage is whatever. They're really trying to make her less useful than she was before. She is useful in certain situations, but that would be a key. And then looking at what DPS they have. Okay. Those are the 2, I think, big telltale what they're planning on trying to do.
Okay, so we can agree that fundamentally the triggers / tells for the opposing team's composition are main tanks and DPS. Do you both agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so understanding this, if you're average Joe in silver, and I'm going to start throwing out some weird stuff, and I'm going to see if you guys can help rationalize this for the silvers, the golds, maybe potentially bronzes if we have one listening, and maybe even some diamonds or some plats who don't understand. Generally most GMs pick up on this, and most masters pick up on it, so this isn't really new to them. But let's say an opposing team, without giving away the other 3 heroes, has a Winston, a Hanzo, and a McCree. What are they doing?
I don't think they know what they're doing. They're just playing to their strengths.
Yeah,
Like legitimately,
I'd say so.
I think it's just those players, especially in comp queue, you're just playing to what you're good at. And sometimes it's actually better for you to play what you're good at and allow it to happen, because structure isn't something that is innately there when it comes to comp queue. You're putting people that don't know each other's strengths, and people can try to form comps like, I get all the time. I know you guys do too. It's like, we should play this because it's broken. I'm like, are you good at it? No, then just play whatever the hell you want. Like, if you're good at this, then play it. Like, if you're popping off on, if you know how to play one hero very effectively, then play it. It's comp queue. There isn't really a big sense of like structure, so play it. But when it comes, if you do see something like that, and I'll go back to kind of how to like dissect it, then you know what they're capable of each person. Are they going to play together? Then you can like see like what each thing is capable of. Winston, he's going to be jumping in. He's got mobility. McCree, not so much. Hanzo, scatter arrow is a bitch. Try to like avoid it. But
Geometry.
then you can play something like a dive, and you can kill both the Hanzo and the McCree relatively easily, because they probably won't have support, because their main tank is jumping in trying to kill people, not trying to protect them. So, it's like something like that. It's understanding what each hero does, is then you can kind of start understanding of what needs to die, what kind of needs to get done. And also tendencies as well. It's something that is from top level play and pro play all the way down to like bottom to bronze tier. Everyone has tendencies, and you know what things are going to be most likely going to happen, so you can play around those tendencies. But if you actually get an actual comp, then you can kind of understand what their goal is as a team. But if not, then you just have to individualize it. You have to be like, this person is going to jump in, this person is just going to try to stand there and shoot people, maybe try to flank, etc., etc.
I just want to take a moment and appreciate the fact that I threw out a comp. I knew I would get a reaction from both of them, and I did.
Jesus.
I mean, you can attest to this, like, from last night, Kurt. We ran something completely stupid. We ran a triple tank with a Widow. And I was on Widow, and you guys were tanking. And it was on Dorado, right? Yeah, it was Dorado. Because,
I held the choke like a great Reinhardt.
Yeah, you guys just held the choke, and from that choke, you were trading the shield enough that I could sit there and pick their team apart, sitting way back. I mean, they had no chance to contest me, and it forced them to completely change their composition style. Like, they stopped running the Pharah, I mean, yeah, but they started going with the flankers to try and get behind. That, like, the team was smart enough to figure out, look, this is what's causing the problem. There's a Widow sitting way back here that we can't contest at all, and it comes down to a point where you have to figure out the priority targets. Excuse me, but like, every comp is going to have some sort of priority target that is going to cause an issue for your team, whether it be you have a Pharah against double hit scan, or a Widow, or you have some sort of dive comp where your Winston's diving in, but there's a Reaper or some sort of consistent damage being splashed onto him, what we term a double shotgun today, Kurj. The Reaper with the Roadhog. Kurj would dive in. He was the problem for them, and Kurj got deleted.
Okay, so for context, so that everybody knows, me and Precision were playing comp today with two of our friends, and I was playing on Winston, and they apparently did not like my Winston, and they decided to go 76 Reaper Roadhog, and Roadhog was their only tank, and I kept jumping in until I realized and hit tab, and I took a moment, and I stepped back, and I was like, I want to keep playing Winston here, but they're running Winston into double shotgun 76, so I swapped Diva, and that went a little bit better, but it was still, I'm a tank. I just need to sit here and take it like a man. But the double shotgun comp was definitely something else.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's always some sort of key hero or problem that is going to be prevalent for your team that you should know how to counter. And not everyone is going to know how and what counters what. There's a lot of dissertation between that and lower ranks, and it's quite apparent because they from what I've seen from lower ranks at least, it's a problem with grouping up, communication, and counter picking. Because people just play what they want to play there. I mean, I'm
Yep.
not gonna lie.
Yep.
You're gonna find some really really wonky like 6 DPS comps, but there comes a point in time where you're going to find out, and you're either going to see it in the kill feed, or you're going to notice it in game, or somebody's going to be screaming about it through comms to the point where you want to mute them, where there is an issue that needs to be dealt with entirely. And I'm not talking about someone screaming, "There's a Pharah, can the hit scan please hit them?" But to the point where something is going so horribly wrong for your team that they are getting pushed back so fast that you can't ever gain ground. That should be the point where you take a step back, you look at their comp, and you realize, hey, these are the key problems that we're having, i.e., our supports are getting dove, nobody's sitting back with them, nobody's helping them, we don't have anybody there to help them. Or our tanks are diving in and they're getting deleted. There's always going to be some sort of problem that you should be able to counterpick into.
All right, time for obscure Kurjun reference. I've done this once or twice, and it's been hilarious. So, the movie Invincible, in reference to what Precision just said, really good sports movie, actually pretty cool. Like, you can draw a lot of parallels to that to esports. Basically, there is a scene where Vince Papale is running down, and he keeps getting the dude who's on kick return, just keeps getting him, and he's laying on the ground, and his teammate comes over to pick him up, and he says, "Somebody block that guy," and slaps his teammate's hand away. Like, that's one of those moments where it's like, okay, we need to address this. And then for the next 2 or 3 scenes of the movie, it's literally Vince being taken care of. And then there's the grand hero play at the end where culmination of the movie, etc. I'm not going to spoil it. But basically, that happens in real sports too. It's not just in video games, it's not just in Overwatch. It's like literally understanding what the problem is. And you, if you're the person that everybody's relying on, if you're the key piece of your own composition, and you're the person who's being taken out. So back in 4.2, I played Ana a lot in Comp Q. If I said there was something wrong, every tank should be on my plan, because I am their heart and their lifeline. So, stuff like that, just understanding it is huge, and being able to comprehend that while the game's going in that 30-second window we talked about earlier. You literally can win and lose a game if you do not understand. And if you don't react fast enough, that's why this game's time windows are so important. Do you have anything you want to add, Aurace?
No, I think you guys covered that pretty. Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything.
All right, so that pretty much sums up the stuff for this week. Like, meta is a huge playground for us. If we get into further down the line, like maybe around World Cup time, we'll do some hypothesizing of metas, since I only think like 3 of the coaches, maybe 4 of them, even got nominated to the committee. Sucks to be a coach, but it's all good. We will have good people representing us, good experts on the subject, so no salt. Definitely will be fun topic around that time for us. And then also, as Overwatch League starts to ramp up, we'll start branching out into some of those topics, and basically where coaches are going to be thinking / what's going to be going on, especially if this combine takes off. We'll cover that topic. And yeah, that's the topics for this week. We're going to head into our normal Q&A. I had 1 question from the YouTube video, and then I had 3 or 4 from friend of our stream. I'm going to go ahead and sell her out real quick. Exo Porcelain, I was on there earlier. She got 2 hosts. Some of you guys subscribed to the YouTube channel because of it. Started posting questions in the Twitch chat. I tried to copy and paste as many of them as I could, and we're going to go ahead and take time and answer those now, and we'll go from there. And then after we are done with... Why did my computer just do that? That's awesome. Random window opened. So, go to the questions now. Alright, first question is from Brock Antone 5. I think that's how you say it. He goes, had a question regarding the mind game which goes on, in particular, in Ryan v Ryan mirror match. What is the best way to improve in this matchup? What should my thought process be in-game as opposed to in a VOD review? Either of you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll hit this one off since I had quite a bit of work into this one. Okay, so in a Ryan v Ryan mirror match, what you're looking for and what you should be doing is tracking Ryan's ult. you should know if he's throwing a fire strike X amount of times, how much ult charge he should have to have that ult up. What we call ult tracking. But in this situation, what you want to do is either bait out the Ryan's ult or get to a point where you can break his shield down, your team can break his shield down to where you can ult and take their team out. Ultimately, what you're looking for here is trying to bait that ult by dropping your shield. I know some people do this really, really, really stupid thing, but they like to sit there and wave at the opposing Ryan until he's about to bring that hammer down, and as soon as he does it, pops his shield up, and guess what? You just wasted an ult. Seen it plenty of times. It's been all over Reddit. Yeah, cool, whatever. But what you're looking for is to see how he plays. If he gets aggressive and starts pushing in and pushing in and pushing in, you should know he has that ult. You should be ready to block it. You should be watching how your shield health is. Do any of you guys have anything to add on to that?
For me, one of the big things, I've worked with a bunch of Reinhardts through trials, teams that I've worked with. One of the big things in the Ryan mind game is don't get caught up into the basically circle that it is. Don't get into the I'm going to do this because he's going to do this, but if he does that, I'm going to do this. Don't get yourself stuck in the mind game. Don't get caught in the prediction, and then you outplay yourself. Don't get stuck into that habit. One of the best things you can do as Rhine v Rhine in the shield mirror is understanding the animations of your hero. So Reinhardt has 4 fundamental animations. The shield up, shield down, shield health is also in shield down. His pin, his fire strike, and his earth shatter. Those are the 5 if you count the damage to shield that you need to know. You need to know those things just in the mirror. And if you understand the start of each animation, each of those is different. You can key in on what he's going to do. I used to tell my Reinhardts that if you jump and throw a fire strike and the other person's not paying attention, or you catch them mid-comm, or you catch them doing something, sometimes they flinch and they pull their shield, and it's a point in time where you bought a space, you bought distance, you did something. The mind game is all about progression on the objective and understanding their cooldowns and abilities versus your cooldowns and abilities. So the animations is huge, and don't get stuck into the mental mind game are the 2 big things I want to add on. Do you have anything, Aurace? Or is Messer just a god? You didn't have to coach him at all.
I mean, Messer, the big thing for him is that it's understanding when to be super aggressive and when to come back. And I think that's it's a constant kind of talking point with a lot of Ryans in general, because you don't want to just stand there, but then sometimes you see an opportunity and you just want to go in without saying anything. But I mean, yeah, overall, it's just not getting too wrapped up in just that one-on-one. It's also understanding what's around you. Like, that's a big thing. Obviously, the Ryan v Ryan is definitely something that you want to keep in mind and kind of put a good chunk of energy into. But overall, this is your team, and when certain things are up, say like their slam is up or something, that's when you have to really focus on it. But when it's down, you don't have to focus on it as that much. It's just understanding just which situation that you have to be focusing on, either your team or them.
One of the big things I could say, and Precision might hate me for this if he does, it's whatever. Since I've been practicing main tank a lot lately, I have taken to the mentality of Super. Super is an aggro Rhine. If you're not pressing W and left clicking, you're not doing it right. So, definitely drew inspiration from aggro Reinhardts like Super. Juvenile is actually a really good aggressive Reinhardt. He had a lot of moments where it didn't look like he was making a great play or he whiffed, but he was playing so aggressively that he was winning space. He was doing other things that intrinsically you didn't notice. And that's something else with aggro Reinhardts that you tend to notice is they make more mistakes, but they're winning things that aren't tangible to you as a viewer or aren't tangible because you don't understand what the team was trying to do.
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to add on to this, I don't know how much you've seen it lately, but I've seen it quite a bit, is this thing where Reinhardt's will push in to where they can drop that hammer behind the shield
Yeah.
while he's still holding it up,
Yeah,
and it knocks
understanding
everyone
the
out.
animation. Understanding the animation. Where does your hammer fall? What's the distance? And another thing, quick tech trick. I'll reveal it. I don't know if you guys know about it, but if Lucio hits speed boost as Reinhardt Earth Shatters, if he was going forward as he started the animation and the opposing Reinhardt will look like he blocked it. The shatter will happen before the shield. But because Reinhardt's animation stopped his movement, the game registers as him still moving forward, and the shatter occurs behind the shield, and you get Reinhardt and everyone behind him because of the amp speed. So, like, things
That's
like
also
that.
because that's also really only happens online too, though, because of the interpolation
Yeah.
between the different
Not a
things.
LAN
That's the
thing.
only reason. Yeah, LAN you can get away with a lot of different things online, just because of the interp. But on LAN, those type of things don't happen. But for all you guys in competitive, that is definitely something that will happen because it thinks the game is trying to compensate the fact that there is that speed, there is the hammer, but then it's also doing relative position, and it still thinks it's moving, so it doesn't calculate that in until the second later, which is just enough. It's like the pixel. It's a pixel perfect thing.
Favor the shooter. I shattered behind a shield, but on my screen he wasn't there yet.
Right, which I mean, there's a lot of times with the online too, like just going to a different game real quick, CS:GO, you can jiggle peek a lot more efficiently in online because of the interp. On LAN, that's just gonna get you killed because the bullet time and the bullet like registration from a lot of the players, and they have fast enough reaction time, that will get you killed. You can jiggle once, but if you jiggle multiple times, you will end up dying.
Yeah. So to sum up, big things are positioning, animations, understanding your team and your own 1v1, understanding what they're going to do, understanding what you're going to do. Don't get stuck in the mind game. And then basically from there, it's going to come down to how effectively you're practicing it and how effectively you're doing stuff. Like in solo queue, one of the best things you can do to practice the Ryan v Ryan mirror, in all honesty, is go outside of your comfort zone. Like you might play Ryan perfectly as a shield bot. Like that's as a coach, I think that is 100% the incorrect way to play Reinhardt. But if you can do it, more power to you. You're winning. If you're winning, I have no right to complain about it. But I definitely think you have more value than just being a right click bot. So understanding like your objective and going outside of your comfort zone so that you can do things will make it so that you experience more weird circumstances. You understand, like, I'll say, for example, I scrimmed with my team a long time ago, and we were scrimming another Reinhardt, Decop. He's currently on Evil Geniuses. Decop was the second, or no, it was the final turn on King's Row in second phase. So after bar at the subway. Basically, Decop pushed up the road with the payload and then basically 90-degreed me. He forced me to face him and his Roadhog because if I turned, the Roadhog was going to hook me. So I have to respect the Rhine that's in front of me. And then the Ana and the other support were on the street, so I'm going to get slapped. So I have to back up, but I'm also going to give up all that space. And it's a weird circumstance that I never would have experienced if I didn't play against that type of Reinhardt. And I guarantee you he experimented with that and found out that strategy. And it's one of those weird things that if you experience it in comp or you do something like that, it's going to be good for you. Even if you lose, even if you screw up. Learning experiences, understanding what you're going to learn in the Rhine mirror. So, I don't think we have anything else to add. Just summing that up. We're going to move on to the next question. And Precision was back, I think?
Yeah, I'm back.
All right. So, next question is, I'm going to read these because they were in Twitch chat, so they're going to sound funny. It's going to be at Kurjun. Can I have tips on how to hit Grandmaster while only playing Overwatch a few hours every 3 weeks? Kappa.
No, I'll answer that right now. Unless the thing is that for me, it's just there's two type of players that reach Grandmaster. There are players that grind out the games and just eventually do get there just because their base skill is high, just high enough to get there. There are also players that are just insanely mechanically gifted at the game or just have a really good understanding of the game with good mechanics and they climb really easily. But if you're just an average Joe kind of just playing the game, just learning a little bit there, here and there, Sorry.
It's
I like
good.
literally, my head just started splitting for a second.
It's all good.
What was I trying to say? So like, if it's just an average Joe trying to play the game, you have to put in the hours. Like, it's just eventually for most people, I believe that just playing the game and just having the hours put into the game will make you better if you have the right mindset. But if you just are wanting to play just because you want to play, you'll probably stay just where your base level is. There's no growth. So a few hours every 3 weeks, or like a few hours every week, even let's just bring it back. They probably won't. You won't improve that fast. You might see a gradual improve, but the thing is that will take you that much longer. So like someone that would, if you play say every day for a few hours versus every week for a few hours, that person playing every day will improve quicker in a month. And the same growth that maybe that one person you probably won't see for another 3, just because of just the ratio, just how much you're playing, just for the average Joe. This is one of those games that I believe the more you do play, you can get better at. As long as you're asking yourself the right questions and you're like realizing what you're doing wrong, because sometimes there's things out of your control. You can't control other people, but if you're improving yourself, eventually just through the amount of games, you'll just win. And that goes for every game that I've come across. League is one of those. Um, I'm sure a lot of people know what League is and how that works. A lot of people do make Diamond, which is kind of like the end goal for a lot of people that just kind of like love the game and like to play it. You'll see a lot of the people do a 50-50 split of they have very few games that are in there just because they're that good, but they can't go further because that's their cap. Or they play a crap ton of games and finally get in there through either luck or just learning on their own or just the amount of repetition. Eventually, the system will put you to where it thinks you should be, which is Diamond, or for in this case, GM.
Yeah, to sum it up for me on that question is this. If you can put X hours in daily, or you could put X hours in weekly, that means that you are 1/7 of the learning time the person before you. The person behind you who's playing a few hours every 3 weeks is now, we've got to multiply it by 3, so it's now 21 times. You are learning 21 times, quote unquote, slower than the person who's playing daily. And then if you get stretch that out even longer, I mean, you're going to learn, but it's going to take forever. And then you have to understand there's going to be setbacks too. Every new season, there's a reset. So all of that SR you gained, the game still thinks, quote unquote, you're supposed to be there, but you still have to go through the motions of getting there again. And then after you go through the motions of getting there again, you had to learn a new meta. 3 weeks goes by, 3 weeks goes by, 3 weeks goes by, 3 weeks goes by. Oh, we did it again. And you're in a never ending cycle. And unless you put in the time and the effort, I don't think you're going to hit the Grand Master. Like, eventually in 3 years, probably. But we're talking that long of a time frame versus, if you ground out for 3 weeks, actually learning constructive time, and you have the mechanics for it, you could probably crank it out in a season.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you guys on every topic. I mean, for the average player, a few hours every 3 weeks, you're probably not going to make it there for quite a bit of time. It comes down to game experience, game knowledge, and mechanics. And it takes a well-rounded person in all three to be able to hit grandmasters. There are a few exceptions with people with exceptional skill and very low game knowledge that can hit that. But most of the time, you're going to see more well-rounded players around the grandmaster level that have the game time, the game experience, and mechanical skill to be able to consistently play at a high level.
All right. I hope that answers somewhat of your question, Rift. We're going to move on to the next question now. I'm going to say it's Jaxby. Kurjun, what are bad habits to avoid from someone just learning how to play on PC, and what are good habits to build? So I'm assuming this person transferred from console to PC.
All right, I can lead off with this one. First and foremost, posture is the most important thing. It's going to lead to consistency in play. You should always be sitting up directly, not leaning back, not pulling the JDM and just lounging in your chair.
By the way, he can do that because he's been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
And he just found a good way that it just works for him, just as a forward closer for that one.
Yeah. not pulling what I do, and I put my feet up in my chair. Still not very good posture, not gonna lie. It'll kill your lower back after a little bit of time. And going into a game with a mindset that you want to learn is really going to help you rather than going into a mindset that you're just there to play. Um, Going into a game that you're saying, I'm going to learn something this game from my play or from other teammates is going to help prevent you from tilting, which is going to decrease playtime and decrease your ability to play. And it's going to help you improve a lot faster. Those are two things that I can definitely hit on.
For me, one of the biggest habits slash things that you need to understand transitioning from console to PC is this is not a sprint. You do not do 16-hour days and see massive improvement. Like that'll initially work, but eventually it's going to start hurting more than helping. And you need to understand that this is a race, but it's not a 100-yard dash. This is like a 7-mile sprint. They're not sprint. Yeah, cross country event. Find your pace and find your learning curve. If you can pick up a mouse and transition from, say, console to PC, and you immediately have the aim, you have the mechanics, great. If not, you have to understand it's going to take time to get used to your new peripherals, get used to your new input devices, get used to your new posture. Because I guarantee you, playing at a PC is 100% different than playing on an Xbox or a PlayStation. I doubt you're sitting 3 feet away from the monitor, all this stuff. And, stuff changes. And understand that my sense on console was this, and I used the thumbsticks. Well, I use this sense now on my mouse, and it doesn't feel good. Well, did you give it enough time to understand if it feels good and if it really does fit? Did you get used to it? Don't have knee-jerk reactions. Don't expect instantaneous results. Think about it. Like when I play Widow, when I first picked this game up, I played Halo as a sniper, Halo 2 way back in the day because I'm old. I played a few games as sniper with analog sticks, and I knew exactly what my senses was, and I knew exactly what I needed to be playing at. I knew how to when my scope timers was, everything. Transition to PC, I had to get used to zoom senses. My regular sense for my character and my zoom sense are two different things. Generally, you would want a one-to-one, but for my comfort and because I have played games for 12 years the way I played them, I actually had to lower my zoomed sense so low because I used all of the flick. I don't rest on the reticle. I don't use the ambush method. I use the flick method. And because I used the flick method, I needed a lower sense so that I could use more of my mouse space. And I understood this and I learned this. So I refined my sense to that and my comfort of play. And understanding, like I said, it's not a sprint. You don't need to have knee-jerk reactions. Slowly do it. Build up your time. Understand what your learning curve is. Those are huge, huge things that you can understand, and they will improve immensely over time.
I would agree, and I mean both me. Actually all of us. I'm sure we've came from console gaming before and then switched over to PC gaming. And I will tell you that it took me a long time, like these guys are saying, that it took a long time to get used to it, to find my perfect sense, to find a mouse that fit my hand, I found a keyboard that felt good, find a position for my mouse pad, my keyboard, my monitors, everything on my desk. Like to find all that will take time. If you rush, like Kurjun said, if you rush it and expect something just work automatically, that's not gonna. It's a lot of trial and error. And the biggest thing is you're the individual. You can go online and look up like this is my setup, this is what I do. It's like this is my sense. It's like great, but you're not that person. Like you can use it as like a starting point. Like try it and then start tweaking it out. Like this looks good for me, and then start tweaking it. But you can't just start using someone else's sense and or like set up and expect it to like work out 100% for you. That's just not how it works. I know for me it took probably about 2 months to get used to it fully. And back then I was using a lot less. I was using really kind of low undergraded equipment back then just because I didn't really know what I needed as a PC gamer. With a console, you kind of, this is what you get, this is standard, and that's it. Whereas with PC, there's a lot of different kind of things you can kind of mix and match. You can get different quality, you can get different brands, you can get all this, and it's something that you just have to kind of do. Consistency is key. So when you find something that does work out for you, stick with it. If you're doing bad, don't blame it on that. Blame it on. I would say I wouldn't even blame it. Like I don't blame it on your setup. But like try to figure out maybe something that day. Maybe you're just out of it that day. Maybe you just don't feel good. Maybe something in your mind is making you play bad. But definitely setting that up first, and sticking with it is kind of what you need to do. Bad habits. I mean, I would say like kind of what Precision said is like posture for sure. Mouse grip is another. And how far away you are from your monitor. Some people love being really close, and I don't really agree with that. I think that's actually really bad, for multiple reasons. Good habits is again like making sure that you're getting like console gaming too, making sure you're getting up every once in a while, stretching. If you're doing like a long stint of gaming, making sure everything feels ergonomical and making sure you're not straining yourself. Those are kind of like just kind of big overall themes that you should be doing. As in for in-game, that's just a whole other topic in itself.
Yeah, so I hope that answers your question, and thank you for asking it. I'm going to go ahead and say this next question, but I'm also going to sort of tackle it at the same time, because this is one of those quote-unquote coach peeves, so I'm going to take the liberty with it. At Kurjun, how do I get good and climb an SR when I don't have friends and the Overwatch randoms suck? Well, simple. I'm just going to be honest with you, man. You have a defeatist mentality in that question. Like, the statement you make is defeatist. Like, you're saying all Overwatch randoms suck. You don't even know half of them. You've probably played with less than 1% of the player base. Less than 1% of 1% of the player base. So, in all honesty, you have a defeatist attitude, and you're going into it with the mindset you're going to lose. And, like, not having friends, make some. Like, fundamentally, that's all it is. Like, be friendly, talk to people. If you don't want to talk to people and you want to be rogue, but do your best to enable the randoms. We've talked about it in the series 3 or 4 times. Like, just don't have that mentality. And I think fundamentally, you're going to have better results and you're going to climb. Like, generally just being positive, you're just, even without just having everything, you're going to do better. So, but yeah, I just wanted to tackle that question real quick. All right, and now we get to the fun last question. And I posted this one just so that you guys understand. This isn't just about Overwatch questions. If you want to ask somebody a specific question and they're on the show, or you have something that's completely off the wall and funny that you want to ask, it's open to it. We're normal people. We might be experts on Overwatch, but we have opinions on other subjects. And this one comes from, again, Rift. He asked a bunch of good questions today. And here's the question, guys. Boxers or briefs?
Combination of the two, question mark?
What you got,
Boxer
Precision?
briefs?
What you
I
got?
mean, my go-to, boxers.
Work is boxers, relax is brief.
No. I would say that's the opposite of the two for me if I'm working. Just
Really?
because I don't feel like adjusting
Well, it's
the
just true.
boxers while working.
You're entitled to your opinion. Like I said, this is 100% one of those questions, guys. I just wanted to add, a human touch to it. Feel
No,
free to
yeah,
ask us other stuff.
For me, it's just straight up boxer briefs, like the ones that are kind of a combination of both. You get best of both worlds. Feels good. You have enough room down there to kind of not stifle everything, but it's like tight enough where it's not like flying everywhere.
I really wish we had more coaches on the show right now, because I could totally see one or two of them, and it's just because I've been in the scene for so long and I've talked to so many of the coaches. Like, I could see one or two of them coming in and just going, Thong! What? I could also see one or two of them just be going like, what was it? Oh, I can't remember what it's called. There's another one. It's just funny times, but like, I don't know. It's funny. But I guess after that question and the feel-good vibe at the end of it, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I'm going to go ahead and start by saying, Dignitas Shifty, I'm sorry! I don't know how to work a clock. I am a failure. I'm publicly selling out in an episode because I'm May, and I can't say sorry enough. Shifty was going to join us, but I fucked up the time, so Shifty could not be with us. So I will sell out and say Dignitas Shifty was here in spirit, and he was an awesome coach. You all should go check him out. His Twitter stuff and Twitch stuff is in the first episode. If you go back and look, it'll be tagged in the playlist. And I'm gonna go on to the next person.
What?
Closing. What do you want to say? Sell out time.
Yeah, if you guys like what I have to say or like the podcast itself, I don't know if we have a Twitter yet, Kurjun.
No, I'm working on all that stuff.
okay,
I'm still working
okay,
on
cool.
the app.
That's what I'd be out selling out for one. And then if you guys like me, I'm at Liquid Aurace on Twitter. I post anytime. I have a thought. I'm streaming tournament stuff that we're doing. We're actually going to be in the two tournaments, the last two tournaments that aren't Blizzard, strictly Blizzard backed, or not backed, run, I guess is actually a better way to put it.
Organized.
So organized, there you go. We'll be in those, so expect tweets for that one, so you know who we're playing and when we're playing, so you guys can tune in. But yeah, and then thanks to Kurjun for kind of putting this together.
All right, I guess sell out time. I'm just gonna plug myself, to be honest with you. Twitter is at PrecisionOW. Same thing for Twitch. You can catch us this weekend in the monthly melee. I think it's the last one available. They're shutting it down. It's a Feels Bad Man, so shout out to them. You know, they gave us the come up. We made our name in that tournament, to be honest with you.
Candlelight Vigil for the AMM and the OMM.
Yeah, same thing. Whatever. It's again, it's one of the last ones. You know, so shout out to them. You know, they've consistently invited us. So we made our name there. So make sure you guys tune in to watch the death of competitive Overwatch, as Rotalk likes to say. But definitely shout out to them, and thank you to Courage for hosting another one.
All right, final two sellouts for me before I close out the episode, guys. Well, three. I have three sellouts left. So, I'm going to plug the people who were here and helped me out today. So, congratulations to Precision and his boys on their performance in the last tournament. Did a really good job. It was actually a really lit tournament for everybody who competed. It was really, really good to see all the teams playing, and it was really high level play. So, congrats on your finish there. And then I'm going to plug something for Liquid that I normally wouldn't do. Is if you guys don't follow them, they're looking for an Overwatch analyst. So if you are following this series as a potential analyst, if you head over to the Liquid page, they have an application process, and hopefully you all can find somebody, or maybe will be somebody that Aurace looks to as his right-hand man, or something along those lines. And then the final thing is for this episode, as always, guys, you can post your feedback on the YouTube, you can post it on the Reddit link. Post feedback anywhere. I will read it. I've been reading it nonstop. If you guys send me questions, you can DM to me on Discord if you have me. If you have me on Battle.net, you can do it. Twitch, everything I have, Twitter, everything. If you send it to another coach, they DM it to me, and I will make sure I get it into the episode. So if you have questions or you have topics that you think we should have covered, anything like that, feedback in general, just go ahead and fucking send it to us, guys. I love it. And we're going to keep trying to make this what you guys want. This episode will actually have the voices so you can see with the green mic. I set up the overlay / how I set up my monitor so that you guys could see it this time. And hopefully I didn't reveal any trade secrets by flipping through or people DMing me. I should totally have put this on DND, but whatever. And thank you guys. And I hope y'all have a good one.